So I want to know then, what is the balance? Because I grew up in the, stick with it, grit, you can outwork them. Like I came from that upbringing in that life. And then the flip side to that is the totally adaptable, where you don't stick with anything and you just keep shifting and changing. And so now there's clearly a balance in there. So Courtney, where is that line?
So the balance really is, and what I talk about in the research is that a lot of times we have a strategy we know that we need a strategy once we've hit a brick wall, right? If you've hit a brick wall, if you got rejected from every single job, right? That's a brick wall. Or every single college, like that's a brick wall. And then we're like, oh, I need a new strategy. What I'm going to tell you is we need a strategy before that. We need to start implementing a strategy on the front end while we're still on the path. And this path may turn out to work out great, but we need a strategy so that we're paying attention to any potential signs. Because you're right, we've been culturally conditioned to ignore the signs and just be like, I'm not going to quit, and ignore all the signs. So here's how you don't ignore the signs. You start by doing an inventory, I'll call it, about what resources you have to put towards your goal. So resources, of course, are, time and money, support system, mentorship, all of that. Put that in your list of resources. Then you want to do some research. What resources does it typically take? Anything that's a number. So if it's like money, time, those are all numbers. I recommend a range because, so like if I asked you, okay, Brian, how long does it take to get an undergraduate degree?
4 years.
Right. That's the common answer, 4 years. We all know some overachiever who did it in 3, and somebody who took the scenic route and did it in 5. So if you only account for 4 years, you might find yourself being like, oh, wait, I didn't know that. So put a range in there rather than be specific. So then you're going to look at those 2 columns, right? What resources does it take? What resources do I have? I also recommend that you start with the resources do I have first. The reason is our brains can do a little thing. If I write down the resources that it takes and then I write down the resources that I have, can't we all imagine ourselves being like, I don't really have that yet, but I probably will, because that's what it takes.
No, that's true. Yeah.
If we start by putting what you have on paper, so then you compare, right? Obviously, you're going to compare. Do I have what it takes? Do I want to give what it takes? And this one I learned, I have a friend, Amber. So we met when we were late 20s. By the time we were 30, Amber was just that person who was doing it all. Absolute rock star. She was married. She had 2 kids. She just finished her master's degree. She was on 2 nonprofit boards of directors, C-suite at work. Just amazing. And I was like, Amber, how do you do it all? And I was expecting a productivity answer. I really thought she was going to tell me something about time management, like a great calendar or something. And the answer that she gave me changed my relationship to resource management forever. She said, every yes is a no to something else. And I may not even know what I'm saying no to until that commitment is already made. So I always think about, Amber, just that idea that every pursuit has a price, and you have to understand what you're paying, or you end up paying double, right? If all we see is the pursuit and not the price, then we're not going to be very smart. So we can be unstoppable, but we're not going to be very smart. And so the final thing that I really recommend of how do you know, how do you decide if you should keep walking this path or not, is that you set benchmarks. So, benchmarks, that's okay, am I meeting the smaller goals along the way that tell me that I should continue on doing this? And a lot of people will say oh, I don't want to set benchmarks. I'll know if I'm being successful Or they'll say, oh, benchmarks. Well, I can set those later. I don't really know what good benchmarks would be until I'm already working towards it. But your brain is not actually great at doing that. Once we start pursuing a goal, your brain flips from evaluative mindset into implementation mindset. And it's really hard to stop implementation mindset once you're in it. It's like that Energizer bunny. It just wants to keep going and going.